his daddy called and told him he didn't want him driving at night, number one. Number two, he has to stay over in the hotel, don't drive any more than 8 hours, and gave him a lot of details. I'm like, this boy ain't worried about getting no job. He got parents that's gonna take care of him until he does get a job.
That's right.
So he is not even worried about it.
Nope. Okay, the focus point of American history, we have to understand the focus is to point you in an opposite direction of where you should be going. American history doesn't focus you on Negroid Native Americans. American history always focuses the attention of the audience on slavery. Slavery, Africa, and Negro I would say Negro slavery or Negro nationality, because it doesn't want you to know that your actual nationality is Negro American Indian. So the focus is to direct your attention away from what you are and toward what they want you to believe that you are. Now, you have to understand that premise. Now I'm going to show you, this is a picture of Native Americans in the 50s that did not, I believe they're the Nottoway, some of the Nottoway that did not lose their ancestry. And they knew who they were. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a comparison of ancient and modern Native Americans that know they're Native Americans. Okay?
This was 1950?
That was in the 1950s. Yes.
Where is it?
I believe that's in Virginia. I believe it's the Nottoway tribe, which is Virginia and North Carolina. The Nottoway tribe crossed the border. Okay, they came in and made borders. I'm gonna give you a little. This is the human biology. We're gonna go over this human biology of the Virginia Indians. Okay, it gives a breakdown of physicality. Let's start with the legs. Legs seldom miscarry and give them a fall. As for letting, this is by John Smith. Letting anything fall out of the hands. I never let me. Never saw dwarfism among them. Let's see here. They have no hairs on their faces, some few, and those but little. Nor is there often found any hair under their armpits. They are continually plucking it away from their faces by the roots. As there are few found, this is the Virginia Indians now, as there are found few, very few, or scarce any deformed or cripples amongst them, which gives you an indication of where the deformities started coming in the black race when they started mixing with the Caucasians. Before the Caucasians got here, we didn't have cripples, we didn't have dwarfism, we didn't have defects, what they would call defects, deformities amongst them. Okay, so did I ever see but one blind man? The overall impression of the uniformity, great physical ability, and good health. John Smith suggested uniformity of Virginia groups and that they all had black hair, lack of beards, and strong, agile bodies. However, he indicated variability in their stature, some being very great as a Susquehannock, others very little as the Wiccacommacos, but generally all and tall and straight, of a comely proportion, and of a color brown when they are of any age, but they are born white. Now, most of us,
Born light, maybe.
yeah, well, they're not going to say light. They're going to. This was in the 1700s, giving a description of the Native Americans. This is by Robert Beverly. We all born light skinned, and we darken up.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So the Indians are of the middling and larger stature of the English. They are straight and well proportioned, having the cleanest and most exact limbs in the world. They are so perfect in their outward frame that I never heard of one single Indian that was either dwarfish, crooked, bandy-legged, or otherwise misshapen. But if they have any such practice among them as the Romans had, of exposing such children till they died, as were weak and misshapen at their birth, they are very shy of confessing it. I could never yet learn that they had. Their color, when they are grown up, is a chestnut brown and tawny, but much clearer in their infancy, like you said, lighter. Their skin comes afterwards to harden and grow blacker. By greasing and sunning themselves, they have generally coal black hair, like you have, very black eyes, which are most commonly graced with the sort of squint which many of the Jews are observed to have. Their women are generally beautiful, possessing an uncomely delicacy of shape and features, and wanting no charm but that of a fair complexion. This is in the 1700s written by Robert Beverly, Human Biology of the Virginia Indians. Now, again, you have to dig to find these type of descriptions of the Native Americans before of what they appeared before the Europeans arrived. Now, like those people there that didn't lose their identity, all of us didn't lose it. If you go back and start looking at Native Americans and their features, you'll see that there's no question that the majority of Black Americans are Native American. The problem is, because, like we discussed before,
What
they...
year is this one? What year is that one?
This one's in 1922. I printed them off, but I didn't have time to write everything down. Because when I'm up there, I didn't want to take too long to get back here. So I just printed them off and got out of there, because their computers are real slow up there.
Very slow.
So they...
What Indian is she?
This is a guy. This is a boy.
Is that a man?
That's a man. You have it already? Oh, I gave it to you. Okay, fantastic.
There's nothing on it.
Okay. Well, like I said, a lot of times those computers are so slow, I'm just printing them off and sitting them out. But that's 1922. 1922.
And what tribe?
I believe he is of the, let me remember. I got it at home. It's, cause I think it's Kasaga. I think it's called the Kasaga tribe. I'll go back and look it up. I can't remember it right now, but I think it's
I
called.
thought it was a woman.
No, that's a man. That's a boy. So, but as you can see, what the features that he have with a Negroid, which is, full nose, full lips, all right, doesn't look like the typical Geronimo, all right. Now, they always tell you, well, y'all can't be Indians because y'all don't have straight hair.
His hair not straight.
His hair is not straight. He just didn't cut it like the white man made us cut our hair. White men made us cut our hair when they Americanized us because they didn't believe in wearing long hair. They made us cut our hair because it was traditional for us and they wanted to erase our traditions. So the purpose again is to focus you away from what you are to what their vision of you are, or what their concocted history of what you are, and their concocted imagery of what you are. And it's everything but what you are. So you have to understand the focus of American history is to turn your attention away from the indications, the evidence, the history of what you are, and program you to constantly follow the path of slavery, Africa, and Negro nationality, which what they call African American. Which, as of 1994, is considered property. Anytime you put down that you're African American since 1994 on any document or identification piece, a medium, such as a driver's license or a birth certificate, you're automatically classifying yourself as property of the United States. That was signed into law in 1994 by President Bill Clinton. The term African American was derived in 1984 by Jesse Jackson. Okay. So 10 years later, Clinton said, we can use that. So that's when he wrote it into law. And it's under law under 13037. Executive Order EO 13037 means that African American is considered property. Do not put down that you're African American on any document.
Well, why didn't Jesse Jackson contest that? Since he came up with the word, he had his own definition.
Because Jesse Jackson is basically a puppet. As long as he's getting money for his lackluster or impotent so-called attention deterrence, what he does is go around and deter everybody's attention away from the problem and mix in sensationalism and then pacifism and get everybody to calm down. It's not a problem. Let's go on forward. But he never solves the problem. Okay, and he's been doing that since he had Operation Push. At least the Black Panthers had the WIC program, Women and Infant Children. And they had bags and bags and grocery bags and grocery bags and grocery bags of children. They fed mothers with infant children for free. So that's where the WIC program came up. It didn't come up when they started mandatory child support. It didn't start with that in 1985. It had already started in the 1960s with the Black Panthers. But they don't get credit for it. All they get credit for is they had walked around with shotguns. Well, they got tired of the cops shooting at them, so they started to protect themselves. So, but as you can see, the historical record clearly describes the Native American on the East Coast as dark-colored, growing blacker as they tan in the sun, tall, slim, or straight body, which is completely different. That's the contrast. The physical makeup is tall and straight. Whereas the physical makeup of the Negroes that came over on the slave ship is more robust, medium in stature, but mostly robust. They can be tall or short or medium, but they're mostly robust. They have wider waistlines. Now that becomes very important because kind of better deep. Here's the difference between the Negro and Native Americans, especially in the females. The females can have 8 children, and their waistline goes back down to a normal waistline. The Negro women that came over on the slave ships, when they have children, they get what's called the Aunt Jemima waistline. It gets real wide, it stays wide, and unless they get out and exercise every day, it's going to stay like that. And their bodies are mostly usually round and robust. Not to say that there's something negative, but it's just a difference between the body shapes of the Negro women that came over on the boats and the straighter body shapes of the Native American women. That's just one of the few indications that proves there's a difference between the North American Indians and the Judites that came over on the ships. Here's a depiction of the record of the Bill Clinton Order 130, Executive Order 13037, which explains that it's considered property. So always look up Executive Order 13037. Now, another physical attribute that they don't focus you on is it's superficial, but the hair length of the Native American woman, the black Negroid Native American woman. The black Negroid Native American woman does not have hair that is similar to the Negro woman that came over on the slave ship. The Negro woman that came over on the slave ship always had a do-rag around her head. And it wasn't because they lied to you and tell you that it was because they wanted to hide the presence or the appearance of their hair. Well, that doesn't pan out because the hair, they wore the do-rags because their hair did not grow very long. So we're going to see this is the hair length of the Negro female, and this is the hair length of the Negroid Native American. So as you can see, there's a difference between the two. Now they don't want you to focus on the difference. What they want you to do is just blur that out and just look at them both as Negroes. This is clearly a Negroid woman. This is clearly a Negroid woman, but this is a Native American, and this is one of this is a Judite. This is a Gadite, and this is a Judite. Now, the reason why Native American history and American history in general never focuses on the breakdowns and the differences between the two is because the more you learn about the differences between the two, the more you know that I'm either one or the other. I'm either one or the other. If I have attributes or factors about my person, which is longer hair, not the texture of it, the length. My hair grows longer than 2 inches. My frame is a narrow frame. Okay? And my features as far as you got your narrow frame, your long hair, and your features as far as, let's see, what was I going? I got the it's not, yeah, robust. They have a robust frame. You have a narrow frame. The hair doesn't grow over 2 inches. Yours grow over 2 inches, and you have a tall, straight stature. Tall and straight stature, whereas they have more of a round. Can be more like a running back like a Emmitt Smith, more of a stocky, shorter, but not necessarily. Sometimes they get bigger, taller, but mostly shorter and stocky. So it's more of a short, robust, short and stocky, medium to short, stocky frame instead of a narrow frame, tall and straight. So once you start seeing that you fit a different profile than what they're telling you you're supposed to come from, you start to understand that I'm not what they say they are. They're blurring the two. They blur the two together and make the obvious obliterated. You can't see because you're too focused on the color. So what they do is they focus you on the color. And if they can keep your mind on the color, because the color is the same for both. If they can keep your mind on the color and not the statue, the frame, the difference in the hair, the length of the hair rather, the difference in the length of the hair, which are superficial, yes, but at the same time, they're definitive. And so, if they can keep you focused on just a color, then they can say, well, it doesn't matter if you're different than this person up here. You both have the same color. So if you got the same color, you come from the same blood, you come from the same origin, which is not true. So, now, let's look at it this way. If you have these, now there are some things that, like it said over here, that I just read to you. If you notice, the men in this picture really don't have beards. Okay? So, facial hair was more prominent in the Negroes that came over on the slave ship ended up with more facial hair, whereas the Negroid American Indians didn't have much facial hair. I think we just read here. I'm gonna do it with my glasses. There we go. We just read here in Beverly's account, Robert Beverly, that let's see, something about, yeah, lack of beards. Lack of beards is something that the Negroid Native American male doesn't have very much. Now, some of them did, but a lot of them don't. Lack of facial hair. Whereas much facial hair. Now, in the black community, you will see some black men can grow a beard that's bigger than their afro. Mm-hmm. But then some of us can't grow no more than what I have, a chin strap. This is as much as it's going to grow. It's not going to get thick. I have shaved it for 30 years. It's not going to get any thicker. It's not going to grow all the way down here. But I know some black guys that have a beard that's so thick, it's way down here, and it's like a fro on their chin.
Mm-hmm, like they guys that play basketball.
Yeah.
For the Rockets.
For the Rockets, yeah. Harden.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he's just letting it grow.
Just like it's just too much.
It's really thick. Well, there's another difference. It's superficial, but it is definitive. And so that goes to show you that you cannot let the man that's teaching you the history sway you to thinking that it's like this. Okay, I've seen him do it. Our subject today is going to be Black Native Americans. We want to remember now that the blacks came over, they did this and they did that, but the first thing they're going to pop out. First thing they're going to pop out. It's that slave ship. They're going to pop that out on you every time.
And that's where they look to.
Yeah, this is a slave ship. Now, this is what the ones that they painted, all right? But like I told you before, the ones that were the real ships weren't like that. This is what they had. That's a real slave ship. That's a photograph. Now, you can fake this, but you can't fake that. You can paint this all day long. But you can't go and find a boat or a picture of a boat with a photograph, because see, they had photography since the 1840s. They could have taken a picture. They could have taken if they were strapped down, they could have gone in and took a picture of them just like they took of this one. But they didn't. You won't find one photograph of people that are packed in like sardines. You'll find paintings all day long, but you'll never find a photograph. You'll find a photograph of children, but you won't find a photograph of 400 men in chains and shackles. You won't find it. So what they do is they use this as propaganda to drill into your head. You were nothing. You were treated as nothing. You don't have any ancestry. You don't have any history. You don't have nothing to be proud of. You defecated on each other. You came across the water. You didn't have any ancestry before you came across the water. And that's all we want you to know. We don't want you to know that you actually were already here. We don't want you to know that you were proud nations that we destroyed. We made treaties. We broke the treaties. You were a proud people. You had land. You were free. You could do whatever you wanted to do. We destroyed that. They won't want you to focus on that. They want you to focus on, without us putting you into slavery and domesticating you like the animals that you were, you wouldn't be anything today. That's what they don't. That's what they want you to focus on. They don't want you to focus on how beautiful you are. They want you to focus on, you got to conform to what we look like in order to be considered beautiful. That's why they changed everybody's hairstyle. Cut your hair. Made you cut your hair like their women cut their hair. They don't want you to remember that you were proud people. They don't want you to remember that you had heritage that you could be proud of. They don't want you to remember that. They don't want you to think of yourself as this at all. Proud people. Even after their nations had been pretty much decimated by the white man, they didn't want you to even think about, well, I was something. I come from a people that were noble, royal. Look at the clothes that they wore. They made them out of buffalo and goat skins, and but they were royal. They walked royally. They walked tall and straight. They were proud. They didn't, they treated each other with respect and dignity. They came over here and said, no, we're going to destroy everything you think you know about yourself, and we're going to replace it with our own made up, fictitious history. And all it has to do is these slave ships. We just want you to think about yourself, you. When they say you, they mean your ancestors. This is what you came from, a sardine can ship. Before that, you don't know where you come from. You don't know what tribe in Africa you come from, but you come from somewhere in Africa. So your history starts with this. This is as far back as you can go. Be proud of it. Be proud of your black history. You didn't come from anything, but be proud of coming from nothing. You still should be proud. You have nothing to be ashamed about. Yes, you do. If this is where you come from, you have something to be ashamed of. But you didn't come from that. You came from this. Beautiful, royal, noble, prestigious. Knew how to take a bath. The Neanderthals, according to the Bible and Job didn't even want his dog to be around the white people, the Neanderthals, the Caucasian. He didn't even want his dogs to be around him because they ate lice out of their own heads. Okay, so now they don't want you to go from this as your history to this and related to this as your present identity. So now, if you take this black woman, that young black girl today, and you took this woman, this woman, this woman, these women, or even this boy, look at her and tell me who would she look like? Does she look like a Native American, a black Native American? Or does she have to look like a Negro woman that came over on a slave ship?
She doesn't have any slave features.
She doesn't have any slave features. But you've been programmed to think that slave features are nothing but the color. Slave features are solely based on dark skin. If you're dark skinned, you're a slave. You came over here as a slave. You were never a Native American. There's no such thing as Negro or Native American. Don't be thinking you're Native American. Don't look up your ancestry. Don't try to even dream of yourself or any of your ancestors being anything other than a slave.
But blacks don't look like Africans.
We don't.
I mean, they do to them.
To them.
But we don't.
We don't.
Have the same features.
Don't have the same
We
features.
have the same skin color, but...
Skin color. But so does an Ethiopian. So does a Pakistani. So does an East Indian. You know. So does a Sudanese. They all have dark skin. But color does not determine who you are. Your bloodline determines who you are. And your bloodline doesn't go back to slavery in Africa. Your bloodline goes back to indigenous, aboriginal American people on this continent. And so when you look at this girl and you look at this boy, they're both Native Americans. There's no question that this is a Native American from the late 1800s, early 1900s. This is a Native American girl from a modern day. There's no question that she resembles a Native American, not an African. Now, that is the propaganda that they keep trying to pump in your head. And guess what? They fooled themselves. That lady that was here, when I walked in here, first thing she asked me, "Oh, are you teaching class?" I said, "Yes, I'm teaching class." "What class is that?" I said, "Native American history." "You can do that?" I said, "Yes." "What do you mean I can do that?" "Is that through the library?" I said, "Yes." It's up there on the board, you know, but they've been programmed themselves to think that you are nothing but a slave from Africa. This is what she thinks when she sees a black person, she's been programmed to think this. It's not just for us. It's for their children as well. They want their children to think of this when they think of a black person. Sardine canned on a slave ship. That's all they want them to think of. And so when they think of that, they'll always feel superior because they come from what they consider royalty from England and what do you call it? The out of Africa theory, you know, white Egyptians that never existed. This is what they want to think themselves coming from. White people. Look, that's not an Egyptian, that's a movie. The Egyptians didn't look like that. We know what the Egyptians look like. We know the Egyptians were dark skinned. But again, it's all, here it is. This is a picture I wanted you to see. This is what, when I was telling you about that robust medium frame, that's it right there. When you think of your ancestors, this is all they want you to think of. Now, if you notice, their body frames have most of the Aunt your mama, short, round, robust frame. Not like these Native Americans, all right? Not like this woman, tall and straight, okay? They don't want you to think that your hair can grow any longer than this. And their hair doesn't grow any longer than this because they're from the Judite tribe, the Southern Kingdom. The Southern Kingdom was cursed with a scab on their heads, which means their hair doesn't grow no more than 2 inches. That's why they kept their hair covered up. If they had long hair, that bonnet around their hair would be a lot bigger. But it's not. It's no more than this. That's why they have those do-rags on their hair. Because their hair did not grow. If you got this much hair on your head and you got to wrap it up in that bonnet is going to be a lot bigger to wrap all this hair up in that bonnet. So no, their hair isn't any longer than that. No longer than this. So, but here, your people have longer hair. Now, it's a superficial difference, but it is definitive. It makes a difference. These women don't have the same frame as those women. They don't have the same hair as those women. Yet they're black people. They're considered black people. Look at the guy in the back. He's dark as night. Now, I've showed you many pictures on Native Americans that prove that the Native Americans that had black features. Look at these black women back here. These are Shinnecock Indians. But you never hear about Shinnecock Indians. You never hear about Shinnecock Indians in American history.
They wiped out?
They reclassified them. They took away their identity and they don't call themselves Shinnecock. They still living. Their descendants are still living, but they call them colored people. Colored people. No, you're no longer a Shinnecock, you're a colored person. Now, I tell everybody, based on, you can take, this is what you're faced with. You have to ask yourself, does this person look like the historical Native American, or does this person look like the historical Native American? What they have done is program you to think that these aren't Native Americans, but this is. That's what they program you to think. This is a white man. Okay, all they do is let their hair out, they let their hair grow, and they put on Indian regalia, Indian clothing. put a band around their head, all of a sudden they're Indian. However, the historical fact, the historical record that we read says their color when they are grown up is a chestnut brown and tawny, but much clearer in their infancy. Their skin comes afterwards to harden and grow blacker. This is not black. Okay? So, there is ample evidence that proves that the Negroid Native Americans are the actual Native Americans. The Negroid Native Americans are the aboriginals, rather, of this continent, not the white Indians. However, the white Indians took over the tribe after the Dawes Roll was commissioned in 1907, and this picture was taken in 1919. This picture was taken in 1919. Okay, Black Indians.
What tribe?
I can't remember. Oh, did I write it on there? I don't think that came with a tribe. I don't think that came with a tribal name. I will find it though. I've been so focused on this other stuff I got going on that I haven't been able to go back and do a lot of it. But these are the two. This is a Lakota Indian, a Lakota. Now I do have his tribe. He's a Lakota Indian. They want you to think that he's not an Indian, and this is.